Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
I was lying in a hospital ward after a heart attack when I accidentally overheard my only daughter discussing with her husband the sale of my house. "Dad won't make it through this," she said, already planning how to spend the 10 million pesos from the inheritance. But a month later, I came back home alive and showed her the new will. When she saw the name of the heir, her face turned pale. It all happened suddenly, as such things usually do. A Tuesday, an ordinary September morning. I was watering the roses in the garden, the ones I had planted 30 years ago in memory of my wife. Suddenly, it was as if lightning struck my chest. The air got stuck somewhere in my throat, and I felt the ground slipping from under my feet. I woke up in intensive care. White walls, the smell of medicine, the steady beeping of machines. By my bedside sat Isabella, my only daughter. Her face looked worried, but in her eyes I noticed something else. A strange assessing sharpness that made me uneasy. "Dad, thank God you woke up." She took my hand. "The doctors say you had a serious heart attack, but don't worry, I'll handle everything. I'll take care of you." The doctor, a young man in glasses, came up to the bed and started explaining my condition. Extensive myocardial infarction, damage to the left ventricle, the need for long treatment and rehabilitation. His words drifted in and out of focus, but the meaning was clear. Things were not looking good for me. "How long will I have to stay here?" I asked. "At least a month, Don Ricardo, and then a long rehabilitation. At your age, recovery is slow." Isabella squeezed my hand tighter. "Don't worry about anything, Dad. I'll take time off work. I'll look after you. I'll keep an eye on the house and take care of all the affairs." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I put it down to fatigue and the medications. Isabella was 43, working as a manager in a large company, married to Fernando with 2 teenage children. She had always seemed sensible and responsible to me, though in recent years we didn't see each other much. She lived in another part of the city, busy with work, kids, responsibilities. The first days in the hospital passed in a half-dream. Relatives came by, my sister Dolores, my cousin Nicholas, neighbors. Everyone said the same thing. The most important thing was not to worry. To regain my health, everything else could wait. Isabella came every day, bringing fruit, books, asking about my treatment. "Dad, where do you keep the documents for the house?" she asked one evening during the first week. "Why do you need them?" "Oh, just in case. What if I forget to pay the utilities or something else comes up? It's better if I know where all the important papers are." "In the safe, in the study. You know the code. Your mother's birthday." She nodded and never brought up the subject again. And I didn't give it much thought. That was a mistake. A week later, I was already feeling much better. My heart was working more steadily. I could sit up in bed, read, even take short walks in the corridor with a nurse. The doctors said my progress was better than expected, but I still shouldn't rush things. That evening, I decided to walk all the way down the corridor, dressed in my hospital gown, moving slowly with the help of a cane. At the window at the end of the hallway stood 2 chairs, and I sat down to rest. Around the corner was a service entrance, and from there I heard voices. Normally, I don't eavesdrop, but then I recognized Isabella's voice. "Yes, I know it's hard, but what can we do?" she was saying. "The doctors don't say anything definite, but you can tell from their faces. It's bad." "And what about the house?" That was her husband Fernando's voice. "Property in the city center like that must be worth 7 million pesos. "Exactly, plus the summer house, plus the car, plus the bank savings. Dad spent his whole life saving, scrimping on everything. Never spent on himself, barely helped us either. Remember when we were buying our house, we asked for a loan, and he gave us a lecture about independence instead." "Yeah, your father's always had that kind of character. Did he ever write a will?" "I don't know, but even if he did, I'm still the only heir. He had no other children, mom's gone. Aunt Dolores is old, childless, and Uncle Nicholas too, so it'll all come to me anyway." My heart gave a jolt, and not from illness. I quietly leaned forward and peeked around the corner. Isabella and Fernando were standing by the window in the service corridor that led to the staff staircase. "Listen, maybe we shouldn't wait," Fernando went on. "What if he lives for years yet? You saw him walking down the hallway today. Doesn't look like a dying man." The doctor said at his age, after a heart attack like this, people don't live long. A year or two at most, and that's if he's lucky. And maybe not even that. Isabella's voice had a cold, calculating tone that sent shivers down my spine. So, what are you suggesting? I've already spoken with a realtor. The house could sell for 7 million pesos, maybe more. The summer house, 1.5 million. The car, 500,000, plus his savings. Altogether, more than 10 million pesos. Unbelievable. I thought he had maybe 3 or 4 million at most. Dad was always secretive about money, but I dug around, did my research. After Mom's death, he got a big insurance payout, plus he sold her jewelry, and he saved his whole life. He was an engineer, earned well, and spent little. But why sell the house? We could just move in instead. Are you kidding? That old house has insane utility bills. Heating is expensive. Better to sell it, buy a bigger apartment in a new building, and invest the rest. Or start a business. You've always wanted to open a car repair shop. I listened to this conversation as if from the outside. My daughter, the one I raised, the one I gave an education to, the one I loved all my life, was discussing my death as if it were a business deal. And not with grief or sorrow, but with cold calculation, as though I were already dead. But he's still alive, Fernando said uncertainly. Dad won't pull through, Isabella said firmly. You should have seen him yesterday. All gray, breathing heavily. The doctor hinted to me there's little hope. At best, he'll be an invalid, bedridden at home, and I'll have to take care of him. No way. I'm not going to bury my own life like that. But what if he recovers? He won't. And even if he does, it won't be for long. At his age, a second heart attack is usually fatal, so it's better to be prepared in advance. Tomorrow I'll go to the notary, find out what's needed for the inheritance process. I couldn't listen any longer. Quietly, trying not to make noise with my cane, I walked back to my ward. My hands were trembling, my heart pounding. Good thing no one saw my face. It must have been whiter than the hospital sheets. Back in my room, I lay down and closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. A few minutes later, Isabella came in. Is Dad asleep? She asked the nurse softly. Yes, he just lay down. Took a short walk today. Got tired. All right, I won't wake him. Tell him I'll come tomorrow morning. She left and I lay there with my eyes closed, thinking about how wrong I had been about people, thinking about my wife, who had died of cancer 10 years ago. Back then, she told me, Ricardo, don't spoil Isabella so much. She's growing up spoiled and selfish. I didn't listen. I thought my wife was exaggerating, that it was motherly jealousy clouding her judgment of our daughter. And I also thought about what I should do next. In the following days, I observed Isabella with new eyes. Now that I knew the truth, I noticed things I had never seen before or had mistaken for care. She really did come every day. But now I realized it wasn't out of love for her father, but to monitor my condition. When the doctor said my progress was positive, I saw something like disappointment in her eyes. When I complained about chest pain or weakness, she perked up. Doctor, how much longer does Dad have to stay here? She would ask in my presence. Maybe it's better to bring him home. I can take care of him there. It's too early, Isabella. Let him stay another week, regain his strength. And what about the prognosis? I mean, for the future? The doctor looked at her with surprise. Relatives usually don't ask such blunt questions in front of the patient. The prognosis is cautiously optimistic. Your father is showing good recovery progress. If he follows all recommendations, he could live for many more years. At such moments, Isabella's face would turn to stone. I also noticed she took a strong interest in my papers and documents. Dad, did you ever get insurance? In case, just in case. What kind of insurance? Well, life, health, lots of people get it nowadays. No, I didn't. The relief in her eyes was so obvious that I was stunned. How blind I had been before. Or this kind of conversation. Dad, where are your savings kept? Which bank? If something happens, I wouldn't even know what to do. Why are you thinking about that now? Oh, you never know. Anything can happen. Better if I'm aware. I started dodging such questions, pretending I was tired or unwell, and I could see how much that irritated her. A week after I had overheard that conversation, my sister Dolores came to visit. She was 75, but looked better than I did. She had always taken care of her health, practiced yoga, ate properly. "Ricardo, how are you?" She sat down by my bed. "Isabella says your condition is very bad. The doctors give little hope." "What is she saying?" I looked at my sister carefully. "Well, that the heart attack was severe, that at your age it's dangerous. She's already started asking about what will be left after you. Says it's better to prepare for the worst in advance." "And what did you tell her?" "What could I say? The house and the summer place are yours. The savings are yours. She's the only daughter, the heir." It just seems strange to me. Usually people don't talk about such things while the person is still alive. And she's so businesslike about it, as if you were already... Dolores didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. My sister was a smart, observant woman. Apparently she too was unsettled by our niece's behavior. "Dolores, do you remember the will I wrote after Carmen died?" "I remember. You were putting all your affairs in order, getting the documents straight. And do you remember what was written in it? I think you left everything to Isabella, right? She's your only daughter." I nodded, but said nothing. Dolores stayed a little longer. We talked about different things, and then she left. And I was left alone with my thoughts. I really had written a will 10 years ago, after my wife's death. At the time, it seemed logical to leave everything to my daughter. Who else? But now, having seen Isabella's true face, I realized I had to change something. But what? And to whom should I leave what I had saved all my life? Lying in the hospital is a trial not only for the body, but also for the soul, especially when you realize that the person you trusted more than anyone else in the world is not at all who you thought they were. I began to recall my life with Isabella all over again, as if re-watching an old film already knowing the ending. And many episodes, which once seemed to me like normal quirks of character, now looked very different. Isabella was born when I was 35. Carmen and I had tried for years to have children. The doctors even said it was unlikely. And then, a miracle. Carmen became pregnant, and we had a daughter. We worshipped her, especially me. Maybe too much. I remember how she had trouble at school. Not because she was stupid. She was a bright girl. Just lazy. She always knew Dad would solve every problem. Bad grades? Dad would talk to the teachers. Conflict with classmates? Dad would sort it out. Needed money for something? Dad would give it. Carmen tried to be stricter, but I always defended my daughter. "She's just a child," I told my wife. "She'll learn responsibility later." "Ricardo, you're spoiling her. She's growing up selfish," Carmen replied. "Don't exaggerate. All kids are like that." But Carmen had been right, and I understood that now, lying in my hospital bed. Isabella grew up, graduated from university, not without my help. I hired tutors for her, helped with her thesis, and got married. She married well. Fernando came from a well-off family and had a small business of his own. But when they had children and Fernando's business went under, they came to me for help. "Dad, we really need a loan. 200,000 pesos. Fernando is starting a new venture, but he needs startup capital." 200,000 is a lot of money, Isabella. "But you can lend it, can't you? You have savings." "I do, but those savings are for a rainy day, for old age." "Oh, Dad, come on. What old age? You're only 50. You'll work and earn for many more years. And we need it so much right now. We'll pay you back with interest." Of course I gave it. What father refuses his daughter? And 6 months later, Fernando's business collapsed again, and the money was gone. Isabella came to me in tears. "Dad, forgive us. It didn't work out. We'll definitely return it, just later." "All right, don't worry. The important thing is that you're healthy." But they never repaid the money. And when 3 years later they needed a loan for a new house, they came to me again. Once more with tears, pleas, and promises. "Dad, we're family. We have nowhere to live with the kids. We're renting and giving away half our salaries. What does it cost you to help? You have the money." "Isabella, I already helped you. 200,000 pesos that you never repaid." "Oh, that was nothing. And this is about a home for your grandchildren." And I helped. I gave another 300,000 pesos for the down payment. Because grandchildren. Because family. After that, Isabella started coming less often. First once a week, then once every 2 weeks, then once a month. She still called, asked about my health, but in a formal way. And if I ever needed something, help around the house, a ride to the doctor, she always had important things to do. Dad, sorry, I have an important meeting at work tomorrow. Maybe on the weekend? Dad, the kids are sick, I can't leave them. Dad, we're doing renovations, it's such a mess. There was always some excuse, and I got used to it. I hired workers for repairs, took taxis to the doctor, dealt with problems on my own. And when Carmen fell ill, Isabella came only occasionally. She would bring fruit, sit for half an hour, complain about being tired, and leave. The main burden of caring for my sick wife fell on my shoulders. I hired nurses, bought medicine, drove my wife to hospitals. Dad, you understand, I have work, the kids. I can't come every day. I understand, and I truly thought I did, or thought I did. But now looking back, I realized something else. Isabella simply didn't want to spend her time on a sick mother. It was inconvenient, unpleasant, interfering with her life. When Carmen died, Isabella came to the funeral with her family. She cried, she mourned, she told everyone what a wonderful mother Carmen had been. And a week after the funeral, she asked, Dad, where are Mom's jewelry? Maybe you can give them to me. You don't need them anyway, and I'll wear them. Keep her memory alive. The jewelry was valuable. Carmen loved fine things, and I loved buying them for her. But I gave them away. I thought, let my daughter wear them. Indeed, I had no use for them. And then I found out she sold them. 6 months later, I saw her with a new fur coat, a new handbag, and she let it slip. Yes, I bought them with the money from Mom's jewelry. So what? They were just lying around anyway. At the time, it surprised me, even upset me, but I didn't make a scene. I thought, she has her own life, her own way of seeing things. Now I understood. It wasn't a misunderstanding, it was calculation. Cold, cynical calculation. And that attitude toward me wasn't the exception, but the rule. In the 3rd week of my treatment, something happened that changed everything. I had a visitor, Miguel, my former colleague. We hadn't seen each other in 15 years since I retired. Miguel was 10 years younger than me, but he looked older. Gray hair, tired eyes, an unshaven face. He was dressed simply, old jeans, a worn jacket. Ricardo, he said cheerfully, reaching out his hand. I heard you were in the hospital, so I decided to visit. Miguel! I was glad too. It's been ages. How are you? How's your family? His face darkened. Things, well, different. My wife passed away 3 years ago. Cancer, and my son... He paused, then sighed heavily. My son died in a car accident a year ago. A drunk driver on the wrong side of the road. My God, Miguel, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Thank you. It's hard, of course. I'm completely alone now. My pension is small. My health isn't good. I'm trying to figure out what to do next. We talked about life, remembered our work, mutual acquaintances. Miguel told me that now he lives in a tiny rented room. He had sold his own house to pay for his wife's treatment. He works as a night watchman in an office building because his pension isn't enough to live on. And you don't have any grandchildren? I asked. My son never had time to marry. He was always busy with work, building his career. He used to say, once I make money, then I'll start a family. But he never got the chance. When Miguel left, I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. I thought about the fate of a man who had been no less a good engineer than me, no less honorable, but whom life had struck with such blows. And I thought about myself, about the fact that I had a house, a summer place, savings, while there were people who needed them more. The next day, Isabella came at her usual time. She brought fruit, asked about my health. I decided to run a little experiment. Isabella, do you remember Miguel, my former colleague? Not really. Why? He came yesterday. He's had terrible misfortune. His wife died. His son was killed. He's completely alone now, living in poverty. So what? Isabella's voice carried a coldness I had never noticed before. Well, I was thinking, Maybe I could help him somehow. He worked honestly his whole life, and now he's in trouble. Dad, do you have too much extra money? You're sick yourself. You need treatment and recovery, and you're thinking about strangers. He's not a stranger. We worked together for 20 years. So you work together, and what of it? These days, everyone is on their own. If you pity everyone, you'll end up with nothing yourself. But Isabella, the man is in need. Dad, she interrupted me irritably, stop playing the philanthropist. We have enough of our own problems. The kids will be applying to university soon. The house needs repairs. The car needs replacing. And you're thinking about some outsider's troubles. And at that moment, I finally understood what kind of person my daughter had grown into. A person for whom another's grief meant nothing, and another's misfortune was not her problem. That evening, I asked the nurse to bring me the phone, to call the notary. I wasn't meeting the notary for the first time. Elena had been handling my affairs for many years. She prepared the documents when I bought the summer house, processed the inheritance after Carmen's death, and helped with other legal matters. She was a competent woman and, importantly, discreet. Ricardo, how's your health? She asked when she came to see me at the hospital the next day. Recovering little by little. Elena, I need to change my will. Completely or partially? Completely, and I want no one to know about it until the time comes. Of course, what changes would you like to make? I took a deep breath. The decision hadn't come easily, but now I was sure it was the right one. The house on Sadovaya Street I bequeathed to Miguel Fernandez. Here are his details. I handed her a slip of paper with his address and phone number. The summer house I leave to my sister Dolores. The bank savings and also to her. As for the car, let it be sold and the money given to orphanage number 7. I once helped them, and I know the money will be put to good use. And your daughter? Nothing for my daughter. Elena looked at me carefully. Ricardo, are you sure? This is a serious decision. Children can contest a will in court. They can, but I have grounds for such a decision. Can you prepare the document in a way that makes it difficult to challenge? Yes, I'll need to state the reasons for disinheriting her and back them up with facts. And ideally, there should be witnesses to your decision. There will be witnesses, and as for reasons, there are plenty. We talked for another hour discussing the details. Elena explained to me all the nuances of the new will and warned me about possible difficulties. But I was firm in my decision. When can you bring me the finished document? I asked. In 3 days. But Ricardo, think once more. Maybe you should talk to your daughter, explain your grievances, give her a chance to change. Elena, some things cannot be changed, and some people don't want to change. My daughter belongs to the latter. When the notary left, I felt both relief and sadness. Relief because I had made a decision I believed to be just. Sadness because that decision meant a final break with my daughter, the last illusions about family shattered. That same day, I called Miguel and asked him to come. Miguel, I want to talk seriously with you. About what, Ricardo? About life, about what awaits us ahead. He came in the evening. We talked for a long time. About work, about family, about how life had changed, how people had changed. Miguel told me about his wife, what a wonderful woman she had been, how they had dreamed of grandchildren, how they had planned their old age together. He spoke of his son, his pride, a smart, talented, kind young man. You know, Ricardo, he said toward the end of our conversation, sometimes I think life is unfair. Bad, selfish people live well and get everything, and good people suffer, lose their loved ones, and end up with nothing. Unfair, yes, I agreed, but sometimes justice can be restored, at least partly. He looked at me with surprise, but I didn't explain. It was too soon. 3 days later, Elena brought the completed will. We met in the chief doctor's office. He was aware of the situation and had agreed to provide his office for signing the documents. As witnesses, the chief doctor and the head of my ward were present. Both had known me for 3 weeks and could confirm that I was of sound mind and memory. Ricardo, said the notary, let me repeat the essence of the document. According to your last will, the house at 15 Sadovaya Street is bequeathed to Miguel Fernandez. The summer property with the house and all buildings is bequeathed to your sister Dolores. All bank deposits are also bequeathed to your sister. The car is to be sold and the proceeds donated to orphanage number 7. All other property is to be divided equally among the designated heirs. Your daughter Isabella is disinherited due to her disrespectful attitude toward her father and mercenary motives in her relations with him. Do you agree with the contents of this will? I agree. Then sign here, here, and here. I signed. The witnesses put down their signatures. The notary sealed everything with her stamp. The document will be stored in my safe, Elena said. I'll keep one copy with me. The second is for you. Thank you. And remember, no one must know about this will until after my death. Of course, professional secrecy. When everyone left, I was alone with my thoughts. The will was signed, the decision made final. Now all that remained was to wait until I could return home and go on living. But most importantly, I knew I had done the right thing. My house would go to a man who truly needed it. Dolores would get the summer place she had always loved. My sister and I had spent many days there with our wives, and the children from the orphanage would receive at least some help. As for Isabella, she would get what she deserved. That is nothing. That evening, she came at her usual time. She brought oranges, asked how I was feeling. I looked at her and thought, is this really the child I once held in my arms, read fairy tales to, taught to ride a bicycle? Is this woman really my daughter, the one I loved more than life itself? Dad, how much longer do you think you'll have to stay here? She asked. The doctor says 2 weeks at most. That's good. Home is the best medicine. I've already prepared everything, aired out your room, stocked up on food. I'll take care of you. Take care of me until the first convenient moment to get rid of the burden? Yes. Isabella, have you thought about what would happen if something happened to me? Dad, she pretended to be alarmed. What are you talking about? Nothing will happen to you. Well, anything can happen at my age. Stop it. You'll live a long time yet, and I'll take care of you, help you. How easily she lied. How naturally those words of care and love came out. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have believed her. But still, if something does happen, you know where my documents are, where the will is? I know, Dad, but let's not talk about that, all right? She quickly changed the subject, started talking about the children, about work, and I listened and thought, soon, very soon, she would learn the truth. And then we'd see what became of her supposed devotion and filial love. 2 weeks later, I was finally discharged from the hospital. A month of treatment had paid off. My heart was working steadily. My overall condition had improved significantly. The doctor said that if I followed all recommendations, diet, medications, moderate exercise, I could live for many more years. Isabella came to pick me up by car. She helped me pack my things and drove me home. The house greeted me with cleanliness and order. She really had prepared everything for my return. Well, Daddy, here we are at home, she said, helping me undress. Now I'll heat up your lunch, arrange your medicine by the hours. For the first few days, I'll come every day to make sure you take everything properly. Thank you, daughter. The word daughter tasted bitter on my lips. Formally, she was my daughter. But in reality, a stranger who played the role of a caring child while waiting for her inheritance. The first days at home went exactly as she had promised. Isabella came every morning, cooked food, checked my medicine, asked how I felt, but I could see it weighed on her. She constantly looked at her watch, was in a hurry, barely hid her irritation. Dad, maybe I should hire a nurse, she suggested after a week. I have work. The kids are on their own. Fernando is unhappy that I'm always stuck here. And you don't want to take care of me yourself? Of course I do, but you understand. I'm catastrophically short on time, and a nurse would be here all the time. Much more convenient. I don't need a nurse. I'm strong enough now. I can take care of myself. Well, as you wish, but if anything happens, call me, I'll come. From that day, her visits became less frequent. Every other day, then every 2 days, then once a week. She called every day, but the calls were formal. How are you? How's your health? Are you taking your medicine? And meanwhile, I lived and observed. I observed how my neighbors, simple people, not wealthy, regularly asked about my health, offered help. how Miguel dropped by several times a week just to talk, to ask how I was, how Dolores came every weekend, bringing homemade food, helping with the cleaning, and how my own daughter came home less and less often, her conversations more and more formal. One evening, about a month after I was discharged, Elena called me. "Ricardo, how is your health?" "I called the hospital. They told me you'd been discharged." "Thank you, Elena. My health is fine. Why do you ask?" "You see, your daughter came to me today. She was asking about your will, whether one exists, what it says. She told me that since your illness you've become forgetful, and she's afraid you might do something foolish." "And what did you tell her?" "What I was obliged to say, that a will exists, that it was drawn up properly, and that you were of sound mind. But I cannot disclose its contents. That's professional secrecy." "Thank you. And what did she say to that?" "She insisted I tell her at least the general contents, said that as your daughter she had the right to know. I had to explain that no one has the right to know the contents of a will while the testator is alive, except the testator himself." "I see. Thank you for warning me." So Isabella was already getting anxious. Apparently my recovery didn't please her. She had to keep up her act of caring longer than she had expected. The next day she came to me herself. "Dad, I went to see your notary yesterday." "Why?" "I wanted to check about the will. Since your illness, you've been a bit forgetful. Maybe you mixed something up in the documents." "I haven't mixed anything up, and I'm not forgetful." "Of course, Daddy. I just worry about you. That notary is strange. She won't say anything concrete, keeps citing some kind of professional secrecy." "Elena is a competent specialist, and she does everything by the law." "But you could tell me what's in the will, couldn't you? I'm your daughter, your only heir." I looked at her intently. "And why does it matter to you, Isabella? I'm alive and well. Why do you need to know about the will?" "It's just, you never know. What if you get sick again, and I won't know where the documents are? What to do?" "If I get sick again, the first thing you'll do is call an ambulance, not read the will." She grew embarrassed, realizing she had said something foolish. "Of course, Dad. I just worry about you." "Don't worry, everything's fine with me, and with the documents too." After that conversation, she started coming even less often. She called every other day, but there was a certain strain in her voice. And I, meanwhile, was feeling better and better. At my scheduled checkup, the doctors were pleased with the results. "Ricardo, you're recovering better than we expected. At this rate, you could live another 10 to 15 years. 10 to 15 years? I wondered how Isabella would react to those words. Probably not with much joy. Another month and a half passed. I felt well, lived my usual measured life, met with friends, read, tended the garden, within my strength. Isabella called once every few days, visited once a week, but her visits grew shorter each time. And then one morning at the end of November, I got a call from an unfamiliar male voice. "Ricardo, this is Demetrio, an investigator. I need to meet with you." "About what?" "About your will. Your daughter has filed a statement claiming that you are in an incapacitated state and cannot adequately manage your property." My heart gave a jolt, not from illness, from outrage. She filed what? A petition to have you declared legally incompetent, citing your heart attack and age-related mental decline. Could you come to my office or should I come to you? Please come to me if you can. An hour later, the investigator arrived. A middle-aged man, polite and professional. With him was a female psychologist. "Ricardo, your daughter claims that after your heart attack, you developed memory and thinking problems, that you started making irrational decisions, particularly speaking of changing your will in favor of outsiders. Is this true?" "No, it's not. I have no problems with memory or thinking, but I do have problems with my daughter." "What kind of problems exactly?" And I told them. I told them everything. The conversation I had overheard in the hospital, Isabella's cynical remarks, her behavior throughout her life. I told them how she had treated her sick mother, how she sold her mother's jewelry, how she borrowed money from me and never repaid it. Meanwhile, the psychologist gave me some tests, simple questions, logic puzzles, memory checks. I handled them all without any problem. Ricardo, the investigator said at the end, based on our conversation and the test results, you appear to be a fully competent and rational person. There are no grounds for declaring you incapacitated. And what will happen to my daughter's petition? It will be rejected, but Ricardo, think about it. Maybe you should talk to your daughter. Clear the air. After all, she is family. Investigator, if you had a daughter who was waiting for your death to get an inheritance, would you consider her family? He fell silent, thinking. I understand your position. When they left, I sat in my chair for a long time, thinking. So Isabella had decided to act radically. Not waiting for my death, she wanted me declared incompetent and to take control of my property. A fine daughter, no doubt. That evening she called. Dad, how are you? How are you feeling? I'm fine, daughter. And how are you? I'm fine too. Work, the kids, the usual worries. And nothing else? Haven't gone anywhere? No, why? Oh, just asking. She lied so naturally, as if she had been doing it all her life. Probably she had. The next day I called Elena. Elena, I need your help. I'm listening, Ricardo. My daughter filed a petition to have me declared incompetent. The investigator came, looked into it, and rejected it. But this shows that Isabella is willing to do anything for the inheritance. I want to take precautions. What kind of precautions? I want her to learn about the new will right now, in my presence. Let her know her schemes will lead nowhere. Are you sure? This could cause a serious conflict. I'm ready for conflict. I'm tired of this hypocrisy. All right. How do you want to arrange it? Come tomorrow at 6 in the evening. I'll ask Isabella to come too. I'll tell her I want to discuss important family matters, and you will read the will. Ricardo, think once more. I've already decided. The next day at 5:30, I called Isabella. Isabella, I need to talk seriously with you. Can you come today at 6? What happened, Dad? You scared me. Nothing terrible. I just want to discuss some family matters. Documents, the will, the inheritance. I think it's time to make things clear. All right, Dad, I'll come. Maybe Fernando should come too. He understands these things better. No, for now it'll be just the two of us. At 6 o'clock, Elena arrived. 10 minutes later, Isabella came. Her face looked concerned, but her eyes betrayed expectation. She must have thought I was finally going to let her in on the details of the inheritance. Isabella, sit down, I said. Meet Elena, my notary. Good evening, Isabella greeted coldly. She remembered well that the notary had refused to reveal the contents of the will to her. Elena, please tell Isabella about my will. Ricardo, are you insisting? I insist. The notary took out a folder and pulled out the documents. Isabella, your father made a new will a month ago, while he was in the hospital. According to this will, Elena read the entire text aloud. About the house that would go to Miguel Fernandez, about the summer house and the bank accounts that would go to Dolores, about the car that would be sold for the benefit of the orphanage, and about Isabella being disinherited. My daughter's face changed as the reading went on. First surprise, then confusion, then horror, then fury. This is impossible, she cried when the notary finished. Dad, have you gone mad? To give the house to some stranger and leave nothing to me, your daughter? Daughter? I said calmly. What daughter, Isabella? What do you mean, what daughter? I'm your daughter. You are the person who waited for my death so you could sell my house, who discussed with your husband how to spend the money from selling my property, who told relatives that your father would never recover. She turned pale. You overheard? I accidentally heard your conversation with Fernando in the hospital. I heard how you were planning my funeral and the division of the inheritance. But Dad, we didn't mean it seriously. We were just what, Isabella? Just planning how to spend 10 million pesos after my death? Just glad that I'd soon be gone? No, we weren't glad. We were worried. Worried in the attempt to have me declared incompetent? Was that out of worry too? Isabella fell silent. She realized I knew about that as well. Dad, all right, maybe I said some things I shouldn't have. But I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. You know I love you, don't you? Love me? Isabella, you never loved me. You loved my money, my house, my willingness to solve your problems. But me as a person, you never cared to see. That's not true. It is true. When your mother was sick, you came to her once a week for half an hour. When I was in the hospital, you weren't thinking about my health, but about how to get the inheritance faster. When I asked you for help with things, you always had something more important to do. But I have work, I have children, a family. Other people also have work and families, but they still find time for their parents. And you only found time when you needed something. Isabella sat red with anger and humiliation. You have no right to disinherit me. I'm your only daughter. I'll challenge this will in court. Go ahead and challenge it, I answered calmly. Just remember, I have witnesses to your words in the hospital. I have documents about your attempt to declare me incompetent. I have testimony from people who saw how you treated your mother and me. I think the court will make the right decision. Dad, you can't do this, her voice turned pleading. You're my father. We're family. I'll change. I'll treat you better. Change? Isabella, you're 43 years old. Your character is already formed. You won't change. You'll only get better at hiding your true face. But where will I go? What will I do? The same as everyone else. Work, earn, raise your children. Live on your own means, not your parents'. She kept trying to say something, crying, begging. Then she turned to threats, that she would tell everyone what a bad father I was, how I had wronged my only daughter. Then back to pleading again. But I was unyielding. For too many years I had closed my eyes to her true nature. For too many times I had forgiven what should never have been forgiven. Elena, I said to the notary, the will remains valid? Yes, Ricardo, the document is drawn up correctly. There are no grounds for its cancellation. Isabella stood up from her chair. So that's how it is. Her voice had turned cold and harsh. The mask of the caring daughter had fallen completely. You decided to punish me? Fine. Just remember, you chose to be alone. Don't call me anymore. Don't ask for help. To me, you are dead. Isabella, I began. No, enough. You want to give my house to strangers? Do it. But as for me, I'm no longer your daughter. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Isabella, wait, I stopped her. I want to tell you one last thing. She turned, her face distorted with rage. Say it. I loved you. I loved you all my life, more than myself. And it hurts me that you turned out not to be the person I thought you were. It hurts me to disinherit you, but I cannot do otherwise. And it hurts me that I had such a father, she shouted, slamming the door. I remained sitting in my chair. Elena silently gathered the documents. Hard? She asked quietly. Hard, but right. A week passed after that scandal. Isabella neither called nor came. I knew I would never see her again. There had been too much pride and anger in her last words. But life went on. On Saturday, Dolores came as usual, with pies in her care. She didn't yet know about the new will. Ricardo, why hasn't Isabella been showing up at all? I called her, but she won't pick up the phone. We quarreled, Dolores. Over what? Over what she's become. Over the fact that I realized it too late. My sister looked at me closely. Is it serious? Forever. Ricardo, maybe you're wrong. She's still your daughter. Dolores, if you knew what she said about me in the hospital, if you knew how she tried to have me declared incompetent. No, I'm not wrong. I told my sister everything, about the overheard conversation, about the investigator's visit, about the scene with the notary. Dolores listened with growing astonishment. My God, Ricardo. I knew Isabella had grown strange in recent years, but this much. And by the way, Dolores, I need to tell you something. I made a new will. And what's in it? The summer house and the savings? I left to you. Ricardo, why? I don't need your inheritance. I need to know that all this will go to someone who values not the money, but the memory. You loved our summer house. You spent time there with Valerio. You will take care of it. Dolores began to cry. Ricardo, maybe you shouldn't be so drastic. Maybe Isabella will come to her senses. No, Dolores, some things cannot be changed. On Monday, Miguel came to see me. Over these months, he had become close to me. We talked a lot. reminisced about the past, discussed books. He didn't know about the will, and I decided not to tell him yet. Ricardo, how come your daughter hasn't been around for a while? Is she sick? We've parted ways in our views on life, I answered evasively. I see. You know, young people are different nowadays. In the past, children cared for their parents, but now, you see how it is yourself. Yes, times have changed. We talked about different things. Miguel told me that an old acquaintance had offered him to move in, said it was hard to live alone, and together it would be livelier, but Miguel was doubtful. On the one hand, it's true, it's lonely being by myself. On the other, I'm used to independence. And besides, it's someone else's apartment. What if we don't get along? And your own place? What own place? I told you. I sold it when I was paying for my wife's treatment. Now I rent a room. I felt sad. A good man, who had worked honestly all his life, forced in old age to drift from corner to corner. In the evening, I got a call from Fernando, Isabella's husband. Ricardo, may I meet with you? Why? To talk. About the family, about the situation that has come up. Come over. An hour later, he was at my house. Fernando had always seemed to me a decent enough man, but weak, completely obedient to his wife, without opinions of his own. Ricardo, Isabella told me about your conversation, about the will. And so what? She's very upset. She cries every day, says you don't love her. And what do you think, Fernando? Does she love me? He hesitated. Well, of course she does, in her own way. In her own way? And what does in her own way mean? Waiting for her father's death to get the inheritance? Is that love in her own way? Ricardo, we weren't waiting for your death. We were worried about your health. Fernando, I heard your conversation in the hospital myself. I heard you and Isabella planning the sale of my house and how to spend the inheritance money. Fernando blushed. We were just discussing possible scenarios, just in case. Just in case of my death, I see. Ricardo, but you must understand, we didn't wish you harm. We were just thinking practically about my death. Fernando, would you want your children to think just as practically about your death? He fell silent. Listen, I continued, I have nothing against you. You're not a bad man, just under your wife's influence. But my decision is final. But maybe Isabella could apologize to you, ask for forgiveness. Fernando, Isabella's 43 years old. If a person at that age doesn't understand what's right and wrong, an apology won't change anything. But she's your daughter. She was. Now I have no daughter. Fernando left, upset, and I was once again left alone with my thoughts. 2 months passed after the break with Isabella. Life settled into a new rhythm. I grew used to the fact that I no longer had a daughter, stopped waiting for her calls or visits. Instead, I began to see more of the people who truly mattered to me. Dolores came every weekend. Miguel dropped by every other day. We played chess, read, talked. The neighbors regularly asked about my health. My health, by the way, was good. At my next checkup, the doctors confirmed positive progress. Ricardo, the cardiologist said, you're recovering wonderfully. With this lifestyle and by following our recommendations, you can live many more years. How many exactly? Hard to say, but 10 to 15 years is quite realistic. Maybe even more. 10 to 15 years. Enough to live a full life surrounded by those who value me not for my money, but for who I am. Enough to have no regrets about the decision I had made. Sometimes I think about what will happen when that day finally comes. When Isabella learns of my death and realizes that the house went to Miguel, not to her, will she feel regret or just anger? But that's no longer my concern. I did what I believed was right. My house will go to someone who needs it and will cherish it. My sister will receive the summer place she loves, and the children in the orphanage will get at least a little help. As for my daughter, she has a job, a family, her own home. She has everything she needs to live. What she doesn't have is the understanding that love cannot be measured in money, and family ties cannot be built on calculation. Maybe someday she will understand that, but it will no longer be my story. As I left the hospital, I wondered, What would Isabella say now if she heard such a prognosis? At the beginning of February, something happened that finally convinced me I had done the right thing. Dolores called me. "Ricardo, do you know Isabella is selling her house?" "What?" "Yes, she's selling it. The neighbors saw. Realtors are coming. Buyers are looking. She says they're moving to another district." "Strange, why?" "Here's why. Turns out they took out a large loan against the house. They wanted to open an auto repair business, but it failed, the money's gone, and they can't pay the loan. The bank is forcing them to sell the house." "And how do you know all this?" "Isabella told me herself. She came to me yesterday asking to borrow money. Said if they don't find money, they'll end up on the street with the children." "And what did you tell her?" "What could I say? My pension is small. My savings are limited." I offered what I could, about 50,000 pesos, but she needs 2 million. 2 million? And what did she say? She said it was nothing, just peanuts that wouldn't solve anything. And then she asked, "What if you asked Ricardo for help, that he has money? Maybe Uncle Ricardo would lend it." "And what did you reply?" "I said that after what happened between you two, I doubted you would agree. Then she asked me not to tell you about their problems. She's afraid you'd think she was trying to ask for help through me." I was silent for a long time, digesting what I had heard. So Isabella had gotten into debt again. Once more she had invested badly, and once more she was waiting for someone else to fix her problems. "Dolores, did she say anything about me? Did she regret what happened?" "She did. She said she's very hurt by you, that you treated her unfairly, that any normal father would help his daughter in a difficult situation, but you turned away from her over some nonsense." "Over nonsense? Ricardo, maybe you really should help. After all, she is your daughter and the grandchildren." "Dolores, if I help her now, what will change? In a year or two, she'll get into debt again, come back for help again, and then she'll wait for my death to inherit and waste it all again." "But the children, what about them?" "The children will grow up just like their mother, because she will raise them that way." My sister sighed. "Maybe you're right." That same evening, my phone rang, an unfamiliar number. "Grandpa," a child's uncertain voice. "Who is this?" "It's Maximo, your grandson." My heart tightened. Maximo, my eldest grandson, 16 years old. We rarely saw each other, but I remembered him. A smart boy, very much like my late Carmen. "Maximo, how are you, grandson?" "Grandpa, I'm calling without Mom knowing. Can I come over to talk?" "Of course, come." Half an hour later, he was at my house, a tall, thin teenager with serious eyes. He looked very much like my wife in her youth. "Grandpa," he said when we sat down in the living room, "Mom told me that you quarreled and that you disinherited her." "Yes, that's true." "Can I ask, why?" I looked at him carefully. In his eyes, there was no condemnation or anger, only curiosity and a kind of adult seriousness. "Maximo, you're grown enough to understand. Your mother was waiting for my death to get my house and money. She talked about it with her husband, planning how to spend the inheritance." "I know," my grandson said quietly. "You know, I overheard their conversations. When you were in the hospital at home, they were talking about what they would do with your house if you didn't recover. And what did you think about that?" I felt ashamed and sad because I realized they weren't worried about your health. They were thinking about money. We talked for a long time. Maximo turned out to be an astonishingly reasonable and mature boy for his age. He told me much about what was going on in their family. "Grandpa, Mom, and Dad are always fighting about money. There's never enough, even though they both work. Mom says if she had your money, everything would be different." "And what do you think?" "I think it's not about the money. It's about how people treat it. Mom always wants to live better than she can afford. She buys expensive things, takes out loans, and then she's surprised there's no money." A smart boy. He saw what the adults didn't want to see. "Maximo, are you angry with me for disinheriting your mother?" He thought for a moment. "You know, Grandpa, I'm sorry it turned out this way. Sorry that you and Mom quarreled. But I understand that you're right. An inheritance is your right. And if mom behaved badly, then that was her choice, and she has to face the consequences. When my grandson was leaving, I asked him, Maximo, how are things at home? Dolores said your parents have financial problems. Yes, problems. We're selling the house, moving to a smaller one farther from the center. But it's all right, we'll manage. I already have a part-time job as a courier for an online store. If you need anything, thank you, Grandpa, but we'll manage on our own. A proud boy and a good one. Too bad he wasn't raised by Isabella. She would have turned him into a consumer, not an independent young man. Spring came. I was once again able to work in the garden, tend Carmen's roses, plant vegetables. My health was stable. My spirits were good. In March, something unexpected happened. Fernando called me. Ricardo, can I meet with you? I need to tell you something. Come. He came alone without Isabella. He looked tired and aged. Ricardo, I came to ask for forgiveness. For what? For everything. For agreeing with Isabella when she spoke about your death and the inheritance. For not stopping her when she filed that petition to have you declared incompetent. For not being able to instill in her respect for her father. I looked at him closely. What happened, Fernando? What made you think this way? We divorced, or rather we're divorcing. Isabella filed for divorce. Why? Because of money, again. When it became clear that the auto repair business had failed, that we would have to sell the house, she blamed me for everything. Said I was a failure, that I didn't know how to earn money, that because of me she lost the inheritance. How is it your fault? She thinks that if it hadn't been for that conversation in the hospital, you wouldn't have found out about her plans and wouldn't have changed the will, and that I was the one who pushed her to talk about selling the house. And what was the truth? The truth is, it was her idea. I just went along with it, as always, and now she says I ruined her life. I felt sorry for Fernando, a weak man, always following his wife's lead, and now made the scapegoat. And what's next? I don't know. We're selling the house, paying off the debt. I'll get a small share, enough for a modest apartment somewhere on the outskirts. The kids will stay with their mother, and I'll pay alimony. And work? There's an offer in another city. I think I'll take it. Everything here just reminds me of failure. We talked a little more. Fernando told me that Isabella blames everyone for her misfortunes. Him, me, circumstances. Everyone but herself. Ricardo, will you really never forgive Isabella? Even if she asks for forgiveness? Has she asked? Number, she still believes she's right. But maybe with time. Fernando, I interrupted, a person doesn't change at 43. Isabella will remain who she is. Selfish, greedy, incapable of admitting her mistakes. He nodded sadly and left. And in April, something happened that made me truly happy. Maximo was accepted to university. And not just accepted, he got in on his own, without connections or bribes, winning a scholarship. Grandpa, he called me excitedly, I got in! To the technical university, engineering, like you. Congratulations, grandson. Well done. Can I come over? To celebrate? Of course, come. He came with a cake and a bouquet of flowers. We sat for a long time talking about the future, about plans, about life. Grandpa, does Mom know that I'm meeting with you? Do you tell her? Number, she forbade me to see you. She said you betrayed us, and now we have to live on our own. And what do you think? Is she right? Number, I think every person must take responsibility for their actions. Mom made her choice, you made yours, and I have the right to see my grandfather if I want to. And how is your mom? It's hard for her. We moved into a 2-room apartment on the outskirts. Mom works more than before, but still doesn't have enough money. She's constantly nervous, angry. She takes it out on Dorotea, on me. And your father? Dad moved to another city. He found work there. He sends alimony, but it's not much. Maximo, if you need help with your studies. Money for textbooks, transport. Thank you, Grandpa. But I'll manage myself. I'll work. I'll earn. I don't want to be a burden. A good boy. Too bad his mother doesn't appreciate such a son. By summer, my health had fully stabilized. The doctors said that if things continued this way, I would live for many more years. I decided to make the final changes in my life. In June, I called Miguel and asked him to come. Miguel, I need to talk seriously with you. I'm listening, Ricardo. Do you remember I told you about the conflict with my daughter? I remember. Why? The thing is, I changed my will. My house is bequeathed to you. He looked at me as if I had just said that I would fly to the moon tomorrow. What? What did you say? The house is bequeathed to you, Miguel. After my death, you will become its owner. But, but why? We're not even relatives. Relatives come in different forms. There are blood relatives, and there are those bound by spirit. You have become closer to me than my own daughter. Ricardo, I can't accept such a gift. It's too much. You can and you will. The house has to go to someone. Better to someone who will value it than to someone who would sell it the very next day. Miguel sat in silence for a long time, digesting my words. And your daughter? She could contest the will. Let her try. I have every reason for this decision, and they are documented. Ricardo, I don't know what to say. Say nothing. Just know this. When I'm gone, you'll have a home. A real home, not a rented room. In July, I met with Elena and asked her to draw up another document. What document, Ricardo? I want to create a scholarship fund for students of technical universities. Let part of my savings go to help capable but underprivileged students. A commendable wish. And how much are you ready to allocate for the fund? Half of my bank deposits. That's a substantial sum. It will allow many students to be supported. All the better. The documents were drawn up quickly. Now my inheritance was distributed as follows. The house, to Miguel, the summer house and half of the deposits, to Dolores, the other half, to the scholarship fund, then the car, to the orphanage. Isabella still received nothing. In August, I got a call from an unfamiliar male voice. Ricardo, this is Pedro, an attorney. I represent the interests of your daughter Isabella. I'm listening. My client would like to meet with you and discuss family matters, in particular, the question of inheritance. What's there to discuss? Everything has already been decided. Ricardo, any family conflict can be resolved peacefully. Isabella is ready to apologize for past mistakes and restore her relationship with her father. I see. And if I refuse the meeting, then we will be forced to go to court to challenge the validity of the will. Go ahead, but I warn you, I have all the evidence to prove the legitimacy of my decision. Ricardo, why take it to court? Let's meet and talk like civilized people. I thought about it. On the one hand, I didn't want to see Isabella. On the other hand, I was curious to see how she would apologize for her mistakes. Fine. Tomorrow at 6, at my house. But to make the conversation meaningful, let your client come with concrete proposals. Agreed. The next day at 6 in the evening, Isabella and her lawyer arrived. My daughter had changed a lot over those months. Thinner, older, anxious lines around her eyes. She was dressed more modestly than before. Hello, Papa, she said as she entered the house. Hello, Isabella. We went into the living room. The lawyer, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, immediately took the lead. Ricardo, my client, asked me to convey that she deeply regrets the conflict that occurred. Isabella admits that, in some respects, she behaved improperly, and she is ready to repair the relationship. In some respects, I repeated, looking at my daughter. Papa, Isabella spoke up, I understand that you're hurt by me, and you have reasons, but everyone makes mistakes. What mistakes exactly are you referring to? Well, that conversation in the hospital. Papa, we were just worried about you, discussing different possible outcomes. You shouldn't have taken it so seriously. So planning the sale of my house and the spending of my money, that was caring about me? We weren't planning. We were just speaking hypothetically. The lawyer placed a hand on Isabella's shoulder to stop her. Ricardo, let's not dig up the past. What's important is that Isabella is ready to restore normal relations. She proposes the following. You restore her inheritance rights, and she takes on obligations to care for you if necessary. What kind of obligations? Legally binding ones. A contract by which she undertakes to provide you with everything you need, care for you in case of illness, and not place you in a nursing home without your consent. And if she doesn't fulfill those obligations, then the will automatically remains in effect, and the estate is distributed according to your current testament. I looked at Isabella. And you agree to such terms? I agree, Papa. I want to fix our relationship. And why do you want to fix it now? 6 months ago, you said I was dead to you. She hesitated. I was upset. I said it in anger. Isabella, let's be honest. You want to restore the relationship because you have financial problems, because you divorced your husband and were left alone with the children, because you realized the inheritance could solve those problems? No, Papa. I want to restore our relationship because I miss you, because it hurts to live estranged from my father. There were even tears in her voice. An actress. All right, I said. Let's assume I believe in your remorse, but I have questions. What questions? First question, what do you think about the fact that I bequeathed the house to Miguel Fernandez? A man who was left alone, lost his family, and lives in need? Well, if you think he needs help, maybe you could give him some money, or help with housing in some other way. So giving the house to a stranger would be wrong? Papa, the house is a family treasure. We grew up here with the children. This place holds Mom's memory. Is it really right to give all that to an outsider? Second question, I left half of my savings to a scholarship fund for students. How do you feel about that? Charity's good, but not when your own family needs help. So it's wrong to help other people's children if you have your own? Well, yes. Family should come first. I nodded. Third question, if you had received the inheritance, what would you have done with it? What do you mean? Well, I'd buy a proper apartment for me and the children, set aside money for their education. And the house? The house, maybe I'd sell it. It's big, expensive to maintain. With that money, we could buy a nice apartment and still have plenty left over. So the same plan as 6 months ago. Papa, that's practical. Why keep a huge house if we can live comfortably in an apartment? I rose from my chair. Isabella, thank you for your visit, but my answer is no. Why? She jumped to her feet. I apologized. I offered a compromise. Because you haven't changed. You still think only of yourself and your gain. You still believe your interests are more important than anyone else's. And isn't that normal? Isn't it natural to put your own family first? It's normal to care for your family, but it's not normal to wait for your father's death for money. It's not normal to try to have him declared incompetent. It's not normal to believe you're entitled to his property just because you're his daughter. But I am your daughter. You are my biological daughter. But in my understanding, a daughter is someone who loves her father not for money, but simply someone who cares for him in sickness, not out of calculation, but from the heart. Someone who respects his choices, even if she doesn't like them. Isabella began to cry. This time it seemed sincerely. Papa, but what am I supposed to do? I have children, problems, debts. The same thing millions of people in your situation do. Work, save, solve problems with your own strength. You're an educated, healthy woman. You'll manage. But you can help. You have money. I can, but I won't, because my help would only harm you. You'd become even more irresponsible, even more reliant on other people's money. The lawyer, who had been silent until then, stood up. Ricardo, is this your final decision? Final. Then we will be forced to go to court. Go ahead, just know this. I'm ready for legal proceedings. I have all the necessary evidence. They left. Isabella cried all the way to the door, but I remained firm. A year passed since I lay in the hospital after my heart attack. A year since I discovered my daughter's true face. Much had changed in that time. Isabella, as promised, filed a lawsuit. The trial lasted several months. I had to testify, speak about her behavior, present evidence. The court ruled in my favor. The will was recognized as valid and justified. Isabella lost and was ordered to pay court costs, which further undermined her already shaky financial situation. After the trial, she no longer tried to contact me. She lives in a small apartment on the outskirts, works 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. Maximo told me she has become even more bitter and irritable. As for me, my life improved. My health is stable, and the doctors are pleased with my condition. Miguel has become a true friend, and we spend time together every day. Dolores still visits every weekend. Maximo comes by once a week, tells me about university. He studies well, works part-time, has become truly independent. The scholarship fund is running, helping capable students. Miguel helps me select the recipients. He has a good eye for promising young people. And recently something happened that finally convinced me I had made the right choices. Dorotea, my younger granddaughter, called me. She had just turned 14. "Grandpa," she said in a tearful voice, "can I come see you?" "Of course, my dear." She came upset, her eyes red from crying. "Grandpa, Mama said it's all your fault, that if you hadn't disinherited her, we would be living well and not struggling." "And what do you think?" "I don't know. It's hard to see Mama suffer, to live like this. But Maximo says you did the right thing." We talked for a long time. I told Dorotea the whole story, explained my reasons. She listened intently, asked questions. "Grandpa, what if Mama really asked you for forgiveness? If she truly changed?" "Dorotea, your mother is 44 years old. People don't change drastically at that age, especially if they don't understand what their mistake was." "And she doesn't understand?" "Number. She still believes I treated her unfairly, that she had a right to my inheritance simply because she's my daughter." "And didn't she?" "Child, no one has a right to someone else's property. Not even children have a right to their parents' estate. That right must be earned, with love, care, and respect." "I see, Grandpa. Can I come visit you, like Maximo does?" "Of course, you're always welcome." When Dorotea left, I realized not everything was lost. My grandchildren were growing into sensible people, despite their mother's influence. Maybe they would turn out to be good people after all. Now I am 79 years old. The doctors say I may still live for many more years. And you know what? I want to live. I want to see my grandchildren grow up, to see Miguel enjoy life in a proper house, to see the scholarship fund helping students. But above all, I am at peace because I did the right thing, because I didn't let selfishness and greed triumph over justice. My will shall remain unchanged. The house will go to someone who will value it. The money will go to charity and to help my sister. And Isabella will receive exactly what her behavior earned her. Perhaps it's harsh, but sometimes harshness is the only way to restore fairness. And I no longer regret my decision. When I am gone, the house will pass to Miguel, a man who lost everything but kept his dignity. The summer house will go to Dolores, who was always a faithful sister to me. The money will help talented students gain an education, and the orphanage will receive a small but needed support. That is what a true legacy is. Not just money and property, but the chance to make the world a little better, the chance to help those who truly need it. As for Isabella, she made her choice many years ago, when she decided that money mattered more than relationships and calculation mattered more than love. I merely gave her the chance to live with the consequences of that choice. The story is over, but the lesson it teaches remains relevant. Family is not only about blood ties, it is also about mutual respect, care, and love. And if those are absent, then there is no family, only a biological connection. And sometimes it's better to be honest with yourself and admit that truth than to spend your whole life living in illusions.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.